The uninvited guest. The crystal chandeliers of the Hawthorne Ballroom cast a golden glow over Boston's most exclusive charity gala. Women in designer gowns adorned with diamonds glided across marble floors while men in tailored tuxedos exchanged business cards disguised as small talk. Catherine Winters adjusted her sapphire necklace, its blue stones matching her elegant dress perfectly. Beside her, Eleanor Madison smoothed her black designer gown while Patricia Reynolds beamed in her navy ensemble with silver accents. The new hospital wing better be named after someone worthwhile this time, Catherine remarked, eyeing the room critically. Last year's donors were hardly established. As the women nodded in agreement, a newcomer entered the ballroom. Emma Sullivan stood in a simple beige dress, modest, unadorned, and painfully plain compared to the couture surrounding her. No statement jewelry, no designer clutch. Her auburn hair was styled simply, her makeup minimal. Who invited her? Patricia whispered, not bothering to lower her voice. And in that dress? It looks like she's here for a job interview, not a $5,000 a plate charity event. Emma moved through the crowd with quiet confidence. At 34, she carried herself with natural grace that required no embellishment. She paused to study the architectural renderings of the Children's Hospital expansion, tonight's designated cause. Her eyes focused on details others overlooked. What none of these socialites knew was that Emma had spent the morning touring the hospital's current pediatric ward, learning the names of young patients and promising a little girl with leukemia that the new wing would have windows facing the garden where butterflies gathered in spring. A promise Emma knew would be kept. "I don't believe we've met," came a cultured voice beside Emma. Catherine Winters extended her hand, diamond bracelet catching the light. Catherine Winters, hospital board fundraising chair. Emma turned, offering a genuine smile. "Emma Sullivan. It's lovely to meet you." Catherine's smile remained fixed as her eyes assessed Emma's attire, searching for a designer label and finding none. "And what brings you to our little gathering tonight? Are you with the medical staff?" "No," Emma replied simply. "I'm just passionate about children's healthcare." Eleanor and Patricia drifted closer, circling like elegantly dressed sharks. "We don't often see new faces at these events," Eleanor commented, champagne flute poised delicately in manicured fingers. "The Hawthorne Gala is usually quite exclusive." Emma nodded. The invitation mentioned the pediatric oncology wing. "It's a cause close to my heart." Patricia exchanged a quick glance with Catherine, eyebrows raised. "Well, every small contribution helps, I suppose. Though tonight's donors are mostly in the 6- and 7-figure range." "It adds up," Emma agreed pleasantly. Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly. There was something about this plain woman's confidence that unsettled her. "Your dress," she began, voice dripping with false concern, "is it vintage?" The question hung in the air, its true meaning transparent. Eleanor barely concealed a smirk behind her champagne glass. "Just simple," Emma replied, unperturbed. "I find elaborate designs distracting." "How practical," Catherine replied, her tone making the word sound like an insult. "The circle of judgment." "We must introduce you to Montgomery Wells," Catherine continued with false enthusiasm. "He's our biggest donor from last year, $5 million for the emergency department. Monty loves meeting everyday people." Emma's eyes reflected quiet wisdom. "I'd enjoy that." As they guided Emma across the ballroom, Catherine subtly signaled to others in their circle, rolling her eyes when Emma wasn't looking. Whispers followed in their wake. "Who brought the secretary? Is that dress from a department store? Poor thing, she clearly doesn't belong here." Dr. James Harris approached their group with a warm smile. "Ladies, wonderful to see you again." His eyes brightened upon seeing Emma. "Miss Sullivan. I didn't know you'd be here tonight." Catherine's perfect eyebrows arched in surprise. "You two know each other?" Before Emma could respond, Dr. Harris continued enthusiastically. "Miss Sullivan visited our pediatric ward this morning. Spent hours with the children. Little Sophie hasn't stopped talking about the butterfly garden you promised her. Catherine's smile tightened. How charitable. But Dr. Harris, Miss Sullivan was just about to join us in meeting Montgomery Wells. Ah, Monty's caught up with the mayor at the moment, Dr. Harris replied. Perhaps Miss Sullivan could share her thoughts on the new wing design while we wait. Her perspective might be valuable. Patricia gave a silvery laugh. James, darling, I'm sure Miss Sullivan is more interested in the canapés than construction plans. This is rather technical, after all. Emma remained silent, her expression betraying nothing. Actually, Dr. Harris replied, his tone cooling slightly, Miss Sullivan asked some remarkably insightful questions about our pediatric care protocols this morning. I'd value her input. Catherine smoothly intervened. James, we shouldn't overwhelm our guest. These events can be intimidating for newcomers. She turned to Emma with practiced condescension. The donor's circle operates quite differently from regular hospital visitors. It's all rather complex. Across the room, the hospital's executive director ascended the small stage. Catherine's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just moments away from revealing our major donors for the new children's wing, she whispered to her friends. This is where we shine, darlings. Emma glanced toward the stage, then at her watch. If you'll excuse me, I need to step out for a moment. Of course, Catherine replied, barely concealing her relief. The restrooms are down the hall to the left. Though I'm not sure they can do much to help with that dress. As Emma walked away, Patricia leaned in. My goodness, Catherine, wherever did they find her? She looks like she wandered in from a job fair. The hospital probably invited some everyday heroes for publicity photos, Catherine replied dismissively. You know how it is, they need to show diversity in their donor materials. The working class makes for touching brochure stories. Eleanor nodded smugly. Did you see her expression when you mentioned Montgomery's 5 million? I thought her eyes would pop out of her head. The women laughed, crystal glasses tinkling like wind chimes as they clinked them together in solidarity, completely unaware of the tidal shift about to upend their carefully ordered social hierarchy. The revelation begins. Emma slipped back into the ballroom just as Richard Thornton, the hospital's executive director, tapped the microphone. The crowd quieted, jewelry glinting under the chandeliers as Boston's elite turned their attention to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks a historic chapter for Boston Children's Hospital, Thornton began, his voice resonating with practiced gravitas. The new pediatric oncology wing represents hope for countless families. Catherine straightened proudly, expecting her name to be called among the prominent donors. Eleanor and Patricia flanked her, equally confident in their social standing. Before we announce our donors, Thornton continued, I want to share a story. This morning, a remarkable woman visited our pediatric ward. She spent hours with our young patients, learning their names, understanding their needs. She promised little Sophie Martinez that the new wing would have windows facing the butterfly garden. Emma's cheeks colored slightly as Dr. Harris caught her eye from across the room. This woman didn't come with cameras or publicity teams. She came with genuine compassion and an understanding of what these children truly need. Her questions about our protocols, her insights into patient care, they came from someone who has clearly spent time in hospitals, who understands the medical world from the inside. Catherine frowned, a flicker of unease crossing her features. The description sounded oddly familiar. Tonight, Thornton continued, his voice building with emotion, we're honored to announce that this extraordinary woman has pledged the largest single donation in our hospital's history. $25 million for the new pediatric oncology wing. A collective gasp rippled through the ballroom. Montgomery Wells nearly choked on his whiskey. $25 million dwarfed his previous record donation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Emma Sullivan for her unprecedented generosity and vision. The spotlight found Emma in the crowd. She stood quietly, acknowledging the applause with a modest nod. Around her, the ballroom erupted in stunned whispers. Catherine's face had gone pale. Eleanor gripped her champagne flute so tightly her knuckles were white. Patricia's mouth hung open unattractively. "That's impossible," Catherine whispered. "She's nobody. Look at her dress." But as Emma made her way toward the stage, accepting congratulations from genuinely grateful board members and medical staff, the truth began to dawn on the three women who had spent the evening mocking her. Dr. Harris appeared at Catherine's side. "Quite remarkable, isn't she?" Emma Sullivan, CEO of Sullivan Medical Technologies. "They developed the pediatric monitoring systems we use throughout the hospital. Worth about $200 million, from what I understand." Catherine felt the room spinning. $200 million. The woman they'd dismissed as a secretary, the woman they'd mocked for her simple dress, was worth more than all of them combined. "She's been quietly supporting children's hospitals across the country for years," Dr. Harris continued, oblivious to Catherine's distress. "Never seeks publicity, never demands recognition. Just genuinely cares about helping kids." Eleanor grabbed Catherine's arm. "Did he just say $200 million? Patricia had gone completely silent, staring at Emma as she graciously accepted thanks from the hospital staff. On stage, Emma took the microphone. "Thank you for this honor," she said simply. "Every child deserves the best possible care, and if this contribution helps even one family through their darkest hour, then it's worthwhile." The applause was thunderous, genuine, filled with respect and gratitude. Emma smiled warmly, then stepped down from the stage, immediately surrounded by board members, doctors, and grateful staff. The reckoning. The three women stood frozen in mortification as the reality of their behavior crashed over them like a cold wave. Around them, other guests were approaching Emma with genuine respect and admiration, eager to speak with the woman who had just made history with her generosity. "We have to do something," Patricia whispered frantically. "We have to apologize, explain ourselves somehow." "What can we possibly say?" Eleanor hissed back. "We insulted her dress, her appearance, everything about her. We treated her like she was beneath us." Catherine watched helplessly as Emma graciously accepted congratulations from people who clearly knew her reputation. The hospital board chairman was deep in conversation with her, nodding respectfully at whatever she was saying. $200 million, Catherine repeated numbly. "She's worth $200 million, and we mocked her for shopping at department stores." Montgomery Wells, the previous record holder for largest donation, made his way over to Emma. Instead of the condescending introduction Catherine had planned, he was approaching her as an equal, no, as a superior. Emma greeted him warmly, and they began discussing the new wing specifications with the kind of detailed knowledge that comes from real involvement, not just check writing. "She actually cares," Eleanor said quietly, the realization hitting her. "She's not here for social status or recognition. She genuinely wants to help those children." Dr. Harris returned to their group, his earlier warmth replaced by cool professionalism. "I hope you ladies enjoyed meeting Miss Sullivan earlier. She mentioned your conversation." Catherine's blood ran cold. "She did. She said you were very interested in the donor process." "Quite gracious of her, considering she's been our largest anonymous contributor for the past 3 years. The children's playroom, the family comfort suites, the upgraded monitoring equipment, all Emma's donations. She just never wanted her name on anything." The weight of their humiliation grew heavier. Not only had they insulted a woman worth hundreds of millions, but they'd insulted someone who had been quietly helping the hospital long before tonight's gala. 3 years. Patricia croaked. "Oh yes, Emma's been a fixture here, though she always came in casual clothes to visit the kids. The children adore her. She remembers all their names, brings them books, sits with the ones who don't have family visitors." Dr. Harris paused, studying their pale faces. "I assume you knew all this when you were chatting with her earlier?" None of them could speak. Their earlier conversation played back in Catherine's mind like a horror movie. Every condescending comment, every dismissive look, every moment they'd treated Emma like she was unworthy of their time. Across the room, Emma was now speaking with a group of young medical residents, listening intently to their ideas about the new wing. Her simple dress and minimal makeup suddenly looked intentional, a woman who had nothing to prove to anyone, whose confidence came from knowing her own worth rather than displaying it. "I think we should leave," Eleanor whispered. "I can't bear this." But it was too late. Emma had finished her conversation and was walking toward them, her expression kind but knowing. She'd clearly heard every word of their earlier gossip, seen every dismissive look, and yet she approached them with the same gentle dignity she'd shown all evening. "Ladies," she said quietly, "I wanted to thank you for the warm welcome earlier. It can be difficult being the newcomer at these events." Catherine opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. "How do you apologize for such spectacular misjudgment? How do you explain that you thought someone was inferior when they're actually extraordinary?" Emma waited patiently, her eyes reflecting neither anger nor triumph, just a quiet understanding that made their shame burn even deeper. The lesson learned. Catherine finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "Miss Sullivan, we owe you an enormous apology. Our behavior tonight was inexcusable." Emma tilted her head slightly, her expression remaining gentle. "Apology for what?" "For how we treated you," Eleanor said, stepping forward. "For the things we said, the assumptions we made. We were horrible. We judged you by your appearance," Patricia added, her voice thick with shame. We thought you didn't belong here." Emma nodded slowly. "I see. And what made you think that?" The question hung in the air, forcing them to confront their own prejudices. Catherine struggled to find words that wouldn't make them sound even worse. "Your dress," she finally admitted. "It was so simple, so ordinary. We're used to seeing designer gowns, expensive jewelry. We assumed." "You assumed that someone who dresses simply must be worth less as a person," Emma finished gently. "That external appearance reflects internal value." The three women nodded miserably. Emma was quiet for a moment, then spoke with the patience of someone who had clearly encountered this before. "I grew up in foster care. I wore hand-me-downs and thrift store clothes because that's what we could afford. I learned early that a person's worth has nothing to do with their wardrobe." She paused, looking at each of them in turn. "When I started making money, I could have bought the most expensive dresses in the world. But I chose not to. Because I wanted to remember where I came from, and I wanted to see how people would treat me when I wasn't displaying my wealth." The lesson was clear, and it stung. "Tonight," Emma continued, "I learned which people judge based on appearance and which ones judge based on character. Dr. Harris treated me with respect from the moment we met this morning. The nurses in the pediatric ward welcomed me because I cared about their patients. The children liked me because I listened to them." Catherine felt tears prick her eyes. "And we failed that test completely." "It wasn't a test," Emma replied. "It was just life. How we treat people when we think they can't do anything for us, that's who we really are." Eleanor spoke up, her voice barely audible. "Can you ever forgive us?" Emma smiled, and for the first time that evening, it reached her eyes when she looked at them. "Of course. We all make mistakes. The question is what we learn from them." She reached into her simple clutch and pulled out 3 business cards. "My company is always looking for community partners. If you're genuinely interested in helping children's causes, not for recognition, but because you care, I'd be happy to discuss opportunities." The 3 women stared at the cards, understanding the magnitude of what Emma was offering. A second chance. Redemption. The opportunity to turn their shame into something meaningful. However, Emma added, her tone becoming more serious, this would mean real work. Visiting hospitals, spending time with sick children, supporting causes that don't come with galas and social recognition. It's not glamorous. Catherine looked up from the business card, meeting Emma's eyes directly for the first time that evening. "We'd be honored to help. And Miss Sullivan. Emma, thank you for showing us who we really are." We need to be better. Emma nodded approvingly. Change starts with awareness. You've taken the first step. As the evening wound down, the three women watched Emma move through the crowd, spending time with each person who approached her, treating the hospital janitor with the same respect she showed the board chairman. Her simple beige dress suddenly looked elegant in its unpretentiousness, her minimal jewelry appropriate for someone who let her actions speak louder than her accessories. She's teaching us even now, Patricia observed quietly. Showing us what real class looks like. Eleanor nodded. It's not about the dress or the jewelry. It's about how you treat people. Catherine looked down at her own elaborate gown, her expensive sapphire necklace. For the first time in years, she felt overdressed. I think, she said slowly, we have a lot to learn. 6 months later, the three women were regular volunteers at Boston Children's Hospital. They arrived in simple clothes, spent their time reading to young patients, and had learned the names of dozens of children. They never spoke about their wealth or social status within the hospital walls. And every time they saw Emma, now a close friend and mentor, they remembered the night they learned that true worth has nothing to do with appearance, and everything to do with character. The butterfly garden outside the new pediatric wing was Emma's favorite spot. She often sat there with recovering children, pointing out the different species and remembering her promise to little Sophie. The garden had become a symbol of hope, funded by genuine compassion rather than social obligation. In the end, Emma had given them far more than they'd given her. She'd shown them who they could become, and they'd chosen to become better. The end.